Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am here with Diane Ayers, co-founder and president of PorchLight Rental and Destination Services. Diane, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Ben, I'm great. Thanks for having me today. Nice to see you.
Always great to see you as well. Thank you for coming. We've got a lot to talk about.
We do.
The housing market is crazy.
It's nuts.
Rentals are crazy. Since I think the last time we talked, I went through my own rental craziness. So can't wait to run that by you and see what I did right or wrong.
You just moved, so yeah, you would know. When did you move? January?
I moved in February. So if people remember Ice Mageddon here in Texas, where the entire state, basically was under ice and everything, I moved in the day before that happened.
You've got to be kidding me. What luck.
Yeah. I mean, I could have been moving on that day. That would have been terrible.
Of course, yeah.
I could have been supposed to move in the day after it happened, which would have been more terrible. So, I mean, things work for a reason. So it's all good here, though. But so Diane, for everybody out there, where are you today?
I'm in the Akron, Ohio area. That's where our corporate office is.
Nice. Akron. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Let's see here. We got people coming. I want to know who you are, where you are, what you're up to out there in LinkedIn world. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, got people checking in over here. We got Vinny Valverde. Hi, friends, Ben and Diane. Cheers from Portland, Oregon. Hope all is well. What's up, Venetius? Good to see you, buddy. As always, we got Michael Cadden checking in. Hi, Ben and Diane.
Hi, Michael.
This is great. We had Michael's company on yesterday.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. Very cool. Here we got other people checking in. I want to know if you're watching right now. I would love your comments and questions about housing, about rentals. I also saw some news breaking today about the final rule on independent contractor status under the Fair Labor Standards Act came out today, again, which is kind of breaking news. So if you know anything about that, throw a link in the comments as well. I think that'll be interesting to kind of discuss. We got Farrell checking in from California.
Hi, Farrell.
My leader. Love it. Greetings from London. We got London in the house. This is great. This is great. We got a bunch of people on LinkedIn here as well.
I saw on the news that London's COVID ratings are really low now.
Thank goodness.
Flu and pneumonia are outranking COVID. So good job in the UK.
Yeah, I don't know if it's do I cheer for that? Do I
know.
Oh, so close. Sandra Clary, hi Diane, always nice to see you. Yeah, Michael Bilodeau, hi Diane and Ben and Ben Michael from Richmond. Kelly checking in from Dallas.
Hi Kelly.
What's up, Kelly? I'm in Dallas. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the housing market, Kelly. Jack, hi Diane and Ben. Jack, I'd love to hear your thoughts on housing, rentals, transferee needs, all that good stuff. This is great. Oh my goodness. Where do we begin, Diane? What's the hottest thing on your mind right now? I'm just going to open it up to you.
Well, really since mid-March, we started an explosion here at PorchLight. We just think the pent-up moves that were waiting to happen have opened. So the floodgates have opened. We're seeing the really just business explode. And so in doing that, we are starting all of the rental tours around the country. We have our own in-house research department here. So we do our own in-house reporting and rental finding, depending on services that clients want. And we are seeing this unforeseen, I think, crisis in the housing market. So
I got a couple questions. You said the pent-up demand has been unleashed or started to be unleashed.
Yes.
When did you notice above average volumes?
Middle of March, I would say. Things were ticking up January, February, like the new year was starting, headed that direction, but then there was really just the floodgates opened. And we do some intern projects as well. And it's, big intern season. And I think a lot of intern projects were on hold, waiting to see if they would be virtual or in person. And then when everything was going to be in person, or a lot of it, that just added to the explosion. So it was really mid-March forward, and it's just not stopping.
Now, when it's been released, now are these getting on the books for later months, or is this like activity that started in mid-March?
It's starting right. No, it is new activity. Like it isn't something that we were holding in a holding pattern. It's just our clients are now sending through authorization saying he's moving, she's moving, and within 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Oh, with 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm wondering what that lead time is from, hey,
Yeah.
she's moving to she needs a place, like go with her tomorrow to.
Yeah, we have a mixture coming in the door, but the majority would be that 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a late May, early June move-in or service date going on. And then you see some portion saying, I am told I don't need to report until August on site. So the authorizations are in the door, but we won't really need service for them until maybe late June, early July. So we're seeing a little bit of that, but most of it is we need service pretty quickly, not a rush, but timely, and they're ready to make the move and get things done now.
Wow, it's so interesting. I love this part about the show when we get to talk to people like you and we get to say, hey, what are you seeing for pent-up demand? I threw a question in the comments there. Question for the audience: what are you seeing for pent-up demand? You're all experts in your own field. I'd love to know what field you work in or what area of mobility you work in and what you're seeing for pent-up demand, because I think there is kind of an arrival pattern when it comes to services. You know, there's immigration and there's kind of moving, and then there's kind of like housing, you know, and all that kind of good stuff. So I'd love to see what everybody is, or hear what everybody's seeing out there.
I agree. And I want to qualify for us, it's primarily domestic right now that we're seeing. And I'm curious how the movers are keeping up with that. If I'm getting the request and they need to be living somewhere in 3 weeks, how are their household goods there? I don't understand how that process is going to work, because they don't want temporary housing. They want to move into their rental. So
they don't want temporary housing. They want to move into their rental. Yeah, that's hard, because so if they're renting, and I'm saying, when you say rental, you're talking about primarily apartments, correct?
I'm talking about any 1-year lease that's unfurnished, and those could be houses, which at least 50% of our customers want single family homes, townhomes.
Wow.
And then there's portions of what apartments. And that's why the crisis is what it is, because single family homes are hard to find, to buy, let alone rent.
Has that trend changed, Diane, though, over the last few years?
No. Since 2003, half of our customers, if not more, want single family homes or something other than apartments, I'll say, because it could be townhomes, condos, but they don't necessarily want that complex apartment kind of living. But that always surprises people, because you think renters, you think apartments, and that's not what it is. And it's partially probably we're not working directly with, immediate new hires. We're working with probably that next level up, that early manager, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, that type of thing. But yeah, they want something other than apartments.
No, I mean, that speaks to me, though, because I remember when I first moved to Michigan, we had rented a townhouse in a real subdivision.
Yes.
And there was a pool and there was a playground. I mean, it was like a house. It just was an attached house, or semi-attached house, because it was an end unit.
Yes.
And it was 3 bedrooms. It was 20, I don't know, 300 square feet. Had a garage. And then when we moved to Michigan, we wanted it was a bump up in pay, and we had a child now at that point, and we wanted a house, and the houses in outside of Detroit were terrible. I mean, they were terrible. They were super expensive. I mean, and it was very interesting. So we ended up going back into a townhouse, and it felt like an apartment to the degree, because we're sharing walls. You can smell other people's cigarette smoke, like dogs. You know what I mean. You're very aware of your neighbors.
Right.
And then we moved into a house. We bought our first house, and now we moved to Texas.
Right.
We were looking for a house, and it was hard. It was hard.
Yes.
There was a ton of applications.
Yes.
And I want to talk about qualifications too, because now as a self-employed person,
yes,
it's hard.
Yes. They don't believe you.
It's hard. They don't believe you. They're like, are you unemployed? Are you trying to get a lease and you're unemployed? Like, You know, are you
Exactly.
going to be selling the copper wire out of the walls here in like a
Exactly.
week?
Yes.
This is interesting. We got a bunch of comments coming in. I want to hear all of your thoughts out there in LinkedIn world. We got Stacy Huff, super producer Stacy in the house. What's up, Stace? Thank you for everything you do. Kathy Hine, who is on.
Hi,
It's
Kathy.
awesome. It's great. Kelly's confirming what I know. Housing is insane here right now in Dallas. 100%. Jana, what's up? Jana. Sandra, Ben, every day it's the what's new in Ben's background game. I see new artwork. Spill it. Yeah, Sandra, I did a little switcheroo right before we got on here. So from left to right, those are lilies and gladiolus. Then I have a little sign there. And then this is Beyonce and Jay-Z in the Louvre, painted for me by an artist off Instagram, which is there's a whole story behind that. Another artist there, Juan Muniz in front, painted something for me and my child a little while back, the LOVE+RELO painting. And then I got a little sign. Shout out to Faye Hawksworth. So thank you for noticing, Sandra. Love y'all out there. Prashant, hello, Ben and Diane.
Prashant.
Mena from Dubai checking in. Prashant says, hello, interesting times as most are getting vaccinated and ready to move.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're moving.
So let's see what people said to the question of what are you seeing for pent up demand. Kathy says, in my town, people are taking advantage of the high prices and selling, but can't find a place to rent or buy in the area. It's getting to be a problem. You seeing that? Are you affected by that, Diane?
That's the crisis. That's what I'm talking about. It is out of control. We have people that are moving to big cities like Dallas, where you're saying you experience this, and all of the multiple applications. Well, imagine people moving to, where are we moving some people now? Spearfish, South Dakota, Bland, Virginia, Easton, Pennsylvania. I mean, it is just everywhere, and there's just so many applications on these properties that what you're seeing in home purchases and the added expense because people are bidding. It's a bidding war going on out there. Rentals are doing the same thing now. So people are able to get in Seattle. We just had this happen 2 weeks ago where they are bidding over the asking price in Seattle for single family home rentals. So it will happen. It's happening across the country.
If I need to be in my apartment for 2 years as of last February, so February of 2023, but I'm only in a 1-year lease, should I go to them right now and try to lock in an extra year at today's prices if I can?
I think I would. And I say that kind of with some skepticism because I don't think rent's going to go down. That's not the issue. It's just, will you maybe get a little bit better pricing if you're locking that in December's time frame instead of May or June or July, when rents are always the highest now. Springtime is always the highest for rents. They always raise them in April, May, and June. Things when, kids are getting out of school and people are moving a lot in this time frame, things start to settle down in August, September, October, November. So will you see some stabilization of rent at that point? That would be my only hesitation.
So you're saying wait for the fall, winter?
I kind of think I would, but I don't know how much rent will actually go down, but it won't go up at that time of year. In an apartment would be my guess. If I had a crystal ball in an apartment, I wouldn't worry.
Yeah, so I'm in a house over here, and I'll tell you what, the house prices in this neighborhood, this neighborhood has a fair amount of transferees. You can just tell, people come here for jobs. And, I see the housing prices in this neighborhood have probably gone up literally $100,000 in the last, I'm going to say 18 months probably. And so rents have got to follow, right? How do rent prices track with housing prices? Is there a bit of a delay, or is it in lockstep, or what do you see with that?
I don't know that I'm an expert to speak to that topic specifically.
Just pretend.
My educated guess on that is it probably trails it just a little bit, but it goes pretty lockstep quick enough. So, we just had a situation last week where a customer came back to us and said that they saw this house listed for rent and they couldn't believe it was only $2,300. And when they called the listing agent, they said, "Oh, we were just getting ready to raise it." And then they went ahead and raised it to like almost $3,200. So they'll quickly turn that market. And, with rentals, you can do that really quickly if it's available. So
you're so right about that, Diane. I'm so happy you brought that up, because when I was here looking for places in like late January, early February, we were getting the alerts when stuff's hitting the market. We're calling, we're like, oh, I see this place is listed for, $2,500.
right.
And it looked like a heck of a deal,
Right.
And oh, we were mistaken. We did that. It was accident.
Yes.
It's actually $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what do you mean an accident? Like, first of all, none of those digits are the same.
Right.
So like, there was not like a fat finger situation. You're just blatantly lying to me. Like, you must have just got 50 phone calls, and you're like, yeah, time out. We're raising this.
Yeah. I will say, on the flip side, we have situations happen where people have gotten into rentals because they, got a hold of a landlord. They end up showing up to one of the open houses or what have you. And a landlord now has like 30 applications, and they don't want to go through 30 applications. So if you show up at the right time and that landlord happens to have another rental coming due in a week or two for move-in, we've had situations where just timing is everything. So he's like, I'll work with you because I don't want to go through 30 applications. So that's a little bit about what's going to go on too. So you really need an engaged environment in doing this rental search. And just like you would with home purchase, you need that engaged local help, feet on the street, transferee included, to be really engaged in getting housing. Everybody needs to be engaged in this process. You can't sit back and think you're going to have 15 listings to look at and I like these 5 rentals best. Well, that's nice. They were gone yesterday now because we waited a day to get back on this. So everybody has to be in the game, and I'm not exaggerating. So people just have to be prepared to move quickly when they're ready to make a rental decision, and they need to be prepared to negotiate. And that's, really up.
What kind of tools, and I want to hear everybody's questions and comments around this. Diane, I'm finding this fascinating. What kind of tools are you using, or are you seeing, or are you recommending to be super engaged and responsive? It sounds like you almost have to have technology or some sort of a bot working on your behalf to.
We do have all of the standard technology that real estate agents will use. So your MLS drips and so forth to move quickly. But we also have our own technology where we can put rentals in a system for a portal for our customers to click on the portal and see anything new that's come up. And they're welcome to contact the listings depending on how their service is set up and what they're paying for services, what their benefits are. Some of them are working directly with our local rental agents to assist with that. Some are doing these things independently, and we're just collecting all the data for them. So they do have that technology available at their fingertips to get the information that they need. But in the end of the day, it requires some kind of phone call, application process, and that to happen.
What's the best practice, like advice, like 3 things you must be doing if you are hoping to be competitive?
You need to be reasonable for the market. So don't come in with some unrealistic expectation of what you'll pay.
Don't think you're going to negotiate. Don't come in like, lowballing people. Okay.
You can't do it in this market. In a single family home. And in apartments, you can't negotiate at all. That's just a fair housing issue. You can't change the pricing in apartments. They have to offer you what they would offer the next guy in the door. So when it comes to single family homes, my advice is really what I'm talking about, because that's where there might be some flexibility, some ebb and flow there. So if you have pets, and I will tell you over 50% of who we move also have pets. And now we're seeing, and we have been seeing for the last 6-7 years, multiple pets. So it's not enough to just have a Mastiff. You need to have 2 of them. Or, we have
a menagerie of Mastiffs. It sounds very manageable.
Our fair share of Pitfalls, and we have our transferees prepare pet resumes. So be prepared with realistic expectations.
What the heck is a pet resume, Diane? What's a pet resume? Is there a headshot? What?
It is.
What is it?
I don't know if you remember hearing about this, over the years when real estate agents would have buyers, prepare a letter as to why I want your home to buy. We're this beautiful family, and that whole thing is happening in this same circumstance that I'm describing. So why would you be the best applicant when this landlord has 10 other applicants who don't have pets? Number one, okay? Now you come to the table and you have pets. Why would that landlord want you? Well, we have to put some emotional appeal around it. So photos really help to do that. So your pet with some children, these are some references of how other landlords have, talked about us as tenants, and we've taken care of their property if that's the case. If they were home buyers, we don't have that type of reference necessarily, but you can have a veterinarian say, this is the temperament of the dog. These are things that we do to take care of our dog and what we'll do to take care of your home. And then we will likely pay a double security deposit because we know that this is a risk you're taking. So they have to come prepared with that type of information. Be prepared to pay market price, be fair, come with a pet resume, and your credit needs to be pretty good. And I know pristine credit means you're likely wanting to be a buyer, but we have to rent in today's market for the reasons Kathy mentioned, and because the housing market isn't going to be there for you to buy. You can't find things, so you're going to end up renting sometimes. And so your credit needs to be in a good place. And if it's not, now you also need to explain why. So a landlord can look at a credit score of 620 or something and have applicants that are at 680. And this is what you're facing in the market. So now you have a Mastiff and 620 credit and 10 other applicants that don't have those issues. No app in the world.
Dual masters
No
with no resume.
Fix that.
Can't even pass a urinalysis. I mean, so I just see I see pit bulls or something, like these breeds that have a bad rap, right? I see people dressing these dogs up in these cute little outfits, and really softening the image, right? It's
absolutely.
Like my pit bull wears tutus on the weekend. This is fascinating. But I mean, I've written these letters honestly as a renter and a buyer. I've written these letters. I've received these letters as a seller before,
Right.
and I've so I get it. It's just. It's crazy how this is. Okay, we've got amazing questions here, and I want to defer to some of our viewers right now. So if you got questions for Diane, if this gets your gears spinning here, throw it in the comments. I'm going to try to prioritize all these great questions and comments. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already, or if you have done it already, hit it again. All right, let's see what we got.
Think this was something that was unforeseen, though. Through the whole pandemic timeframe, we were talking about, are people going to move again? Oh, everyone's going to work remotely. Oh, they're moving out of the big cities and they're going to go, get houses with more space. Well, they've done all of those things. And now here we sit on the other side of things are starting to move. People aren't only going to work remotely. Now they're going to move. And this housing crisis was never in anyone's view. This was not my view. And I've listened to a number of, webinars, economists, all of that over the course of the pandemic year, and nobody really spoke to this issue. I'm curious. Did I miss something, or?
There's so many there's confluence of events, right? And it's to be fascinating to take a look back on this whole pandemic. I'd love to see a Netflix documentary on this thing. Valerie says, what are you finding the clients are doing when there are no options? I mean, they have to move. What is their settle for option?
Their settle for option will probably be apartments when they think they want a single family home, and they may be farther. Mm-hmm. And they may be farther away. So, you come to the table thinking that 30-minute commute is max, and that's a very common statement. People will drive within 30 minutes. They want to live within 30 minutes of their workplace. They may have to go 45 to an hour. They may have to consider not bringing a pet so that it opens up options. They may have to pay more. It isn't that the housing maybe exists, but if there's only two options, they might have to pay more than what they expected, or take less than what they want. They might settle for something that isn't a really quality home. So we're seeing that.
Tanya Jacobson says in the DMV area, we are seeing renters even asking over list rental rate to try to buy the advantage. Renters I deal with are so surprised by this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and the rates probably weren't low to begin with, right? So the rate's already probably a pretty robust rate. And then Tanya's saying they also may need to offer more than the 12-month term. I saw that a lot. A lot of people were asking me to sign a 2-year lease. A lot of them now were incentivizing it, though. They were saying, well, we'll knock $100 off a month if you sign if you sign a 24 month. And I probably should have done it. But Um,
And it's
but
worth it to
anyway,
the landlord because they don't want to have to flip the house. They don't want to clean it. They don't want to have to relist it. It's a cost savings opportunity for them too. Just like when you take a
yeah.
6-month lease, they charge more than a 1-year lease because they are going to have to flip it sooner. So,
Well, and it's probably a good idea too, because to your point, rents are going to be escalating anyway, probably for the
mhm,
next 12 months, I would think.
right,
So you might as well lock it in and save that money on the move. I mean, to move my house would probably cost, 2 grand, even
yeah,
locally, right? So I
right,
mean, might as well. It's cheaper to
right.
keep her, You gotta stay in the house.
Keeper,
Let's
keeper.
see here. Right, it's an old blues song, right? Let's see here. Let's see, we've got some questions here. Chris Benson, how are employers adjusting their policies for those relocating? Is it extending temp living or incentives to build?
I haven't seen, I can't answer some of that. It's not in my purview of what I see in my service, but the authorizations we receive would be for rental finding assistance. And so we're seeing some policy adjustments come over where they're offering more than 1 day of personalized on the ground assistance. Um, but we're also seeing, the standard policies come through where they offer just 1 day, half a day, um, a capped amount. So I think that policies will trail what we're talking about today. They're going to have to catch up with where the market is. And it may happen because RMCs are going back and having those conversations, or it may happen because transferees are going back and having those conversations. And which one will happen more frequently and faster? I would hope the RMCs would get ahead of this. They already know that, home buying is difficult. So that would just translate into renters having this challenge too. And if any RMCs are on this program with us today, that's really what I wanted to get some meat around and bring a voice to, is that it really is a crisis. I'm not exaggerating the situation. People are not going to have, quality living environments. They may have a place to live. It's not going to be where they want to live. And then it just feeds into the, conversation of, well, did you lose that employee a year later because they were so unhappy with where they're living?
That's
And
what I was going to ask you about, like failed
it is,
assignments, right? Is that going to
yeah,
translate into lower quality of life, less engagement, failed
absolutely.
assignments? I want to go home.
Right.
Kids saying, I want to go home, Yeah.
There's been such a trend also in recent years with talking about giving more destination assistance to customers so that they can better acclimate to the area, better figure out where they fit in. You've had Lynn Greenwood on about, with Pivot, about Greenberg, maybe I said her name
Greenberg,
wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that the apps that help lifestyle matching take place, and that's a wonderful thing, but it all starts with where they live. You need to feel like you belong in the community that you're living, and you can't get into that community necessarily because the rental crisis is what it is, or the housing is what it is. And so we need to focus on how we help somebody find a lifestyle match in a home that they can get into, and then the destination acclimation can begin. But we have to get the housing right, and it's going to be an issue for the next, I'm going to guess 2 years, but I think it could be more.
Wow, really? That's interesting. I would say along those lines is like, what can corporates do? I know I came here for probably a week and just stayed like at my mom's house and just
Mhm,
literally spent a week focused on house hunting,
mhm.
filling out applications, seeing lots of properties. It was not a quick process. Things would be under contract or under agreement as soon as you left, and it was just a mess. It was a lot of work. It was a lot. Filling out those applications was brutal, right? It was a lot of work,
Mhm.
and I think that I think I would advocate for like a week long house hunting trip, which I think is probably longer than most people would do for, especially for a rental, a week long
Oh, for
rental
sure.
house hunting trip.
Right. And
Yeah.
they may be in the market for a week, but they just may not have policy to support having somebody really engaged with them to help with that service. But if there are only 5 rentals, it's hard to say I need 2 days. But what takes longer time is what's happening after you find those 5 rentals, just like you said, with the application process and what goes into finding the 5 rentals. It's all the prep that goes into getting to a place where you can actually present any options.
Our first choice house, it literally took them 2 weeks, probably over a week, probably 10 days to respond to our application.
Okay. Wow. That seems like a long time to me.
That seems like it is a long time. I mean, and I'm over here, I'm like, okay, do I continue to fill out massive amounts of paperwork, put $100, $150, $200 down for application fees, et cetera, and then I'm going down, home number 2, number 3, number 4, and I'm less and less excited about each one of those. And they were just, I have a feeling that they were just so jammed up that they just weren't getting back to people. And it was really, really interesting. Jack Jampel is really trying to piss me off right here. Jack says, we as corporate clients have little concern since the household goods industry has always been magicians and always find a way to get us through these difficult times. Jack, I know Jack's messing with me right now. I know he's saying this sarcastically. But sometimes it does feel like it feels like, I mean, is anybody thinking about the supply chain and service providers that have to deliver all the service? Because, I mean, you can't just create buildings with, buildings. You can't just, magically conjure up men in trucks. I mean, it's going to be tough.
Right. We were on a relocation, what do you call it? A regional relocation meeting in Des Moines. And Farrell and I were presenting for our segment of the presentation. And then they had John L. Scott on to do the conversation about buying and selling in the market. And they mentioned that it's like a 20-month shortage of home building. So the market is so far behind in what they can actually supply as new inventory on the market, coupled with people not moving or not having the opportunity to, get rid of existing inventory. So I think there's a lot going on with building not happening as much certainly over COVID. And lumber prices were so high and things that, challenged builders in that time. So this is just a real domino effect.
All right, Jack's doubling down. He's really poking the bear. He says, I'm serious. They find a way to get us through it. Jack, I mean, there's like blood in the streets, man, though. Like, I mean, you don't know what goes into making the sausage, Jack. Jack, I love you, man. Melanie says, are landlords trying to negotiate out of the diplomatic clause, or are they still honoring it?
Oh no! If
you want to explain to people what that is, and then
sure. The diplomatic clause is a lease break clause for people who might be international and need to move again, or even domestic moves. If you're going to move, beyond 50 miles from your workplace, usually lease break clauses will apply. And a single family home or landlord, if again they have 10 applicants and 9 of them don't need a lease break clause, that 10th one that does, that could be a problem. As a landlord, you would look at that and say, do I want to take a risk that I could get this lease back? Now, they may, and you're just going to have negotiation terms that are not as favorable as they might have been 2 years ago on a diplomatic clause. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I don't think it'll be standard as here's your 30-day notice and 2 months additional rent for 90 days total. It could be more painful than that, or it could mean more additional funds up front in exchange for this exit plan on the back end. So I'm not saying you can't negotiate, but understanding the market conditions, and if you have multiple applicants who don't need that clause, that could be an issue.
I'll be honest with you, I thought I was real slick. I'm like, I'm like a relocation expert. I'm senior certified relocation professional. I was telling my realtor, I'm like, hey, it's called a diplomatic clause. Put it in there. See what happens. He looked at me. He's like, "You're crazy. You're out of your mind. I'm about this close away from not representing you anymore as a client. I am not putting that in this clause right now. We did not do 30 viewings just to have you try to mess around on your favorite house and put a diplomatic clause in there." I say, "All right, fine, Jay. Just submit it."
Yeah, you have to be realistic for the market conditions. That's just what it is. And now you're sitting here talking about signing a 2-year lease. I mean,
no. I'm like, I don't want to leave. You can't get me out of here. I was like, I may leave if I get a better deal. I know I'm self-employed, but if I decide that my company's moving to another state, I might want to leave.
Right.
Tanya says, also called the employee transfer clause. She says, I'm still seeing them honoring the clause here in DC area. I think they can also see what they can quickly re-rent, at least in the near future, that they're not pushing back. I mean, that's interesting, right? Because I mean, if the demand is so high, but there's always that gap of a couple weeks, month, I don't know, between tenants. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
I
just
don't
hedge
know.
against.
I don't know what they are negotiating on that. They might still be honoring them. I don't know what the terms are, if they're getting more money in exchange for that, or they think in their market that go ahead, leave, because I can charge $500 more a month by you leaving. So I don't know, what's in the mind of property management companies or landlords on those certain things. But in general terms, I serve the US and Canada. I can tell you in general terms, it's not going to be just happening everywhere. And apartment communities are different. Apartment communities will allow those types of lease breaks in their leases. Again, not all of them do, but more of them will. And they're prepared to deal with that. They're prepared to turn units. They're prepared to touch up paint and do this. That's what they do. But individual landlords or even property management companies, that's just more time on their part, and they charge for that.
Yeah, property management companies probably hate it the most, because I know my property management manager was in here with his wife cleaning this place out before I got here, because when I told him like a room smelled, he's like, I cleaned that myself. And so they definitely don't want to have to turn these places over.
Nope, I wouldn't either.
Oh, this is so funny. Carrie Wiseman, Famine to Feast is definitely underway in DS and rental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you seeing that on the destination services side of the business as well, Diane?
What, the rental finding?
No, are you seeing like this? Because these comments really are pertaining to like pent up demand.
Yes.
And so are you seeing a pent up demand flooding the DSP market, and is it causing shortages or delays or other backups just because of a lack of, frankly, people to deliver those services?
Oh, yeah, not yet. We have the people available to deliver services. We've had clients actually asking us that over the last couple of months, because their customers are asking them. So RMCs are coming to us saying, hey, our clients are asking, do you have the staff, meaning, in our physical office, plus do we have the people on the ground to do that? And the answer to that is yes. What we don't have is the inventory. So you can send as many people as you want, but the inventory is going to be the challenge.
Okay. Yeah. Farrell says higher inventory in primary markets and rent costs going down, and secondary markets inventory going down and rents increasing. Got some other comments here. Prashant, Kathy Hine, yes, that is so true. They want to sell high but live with similar lifestyle in a similar area. We spend a lot of time educating families to move further and explore many other places. That is the only way to explore life and find your hidden gem. I mean, right now with people working remotely, I kind of think that offers you a little more flexibility, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think the people that we're moving aren't working remotely. I think that's part of why they're moving. Is it might be a hybrid situation or something like that, but they do have an office that they're going to. And I can't speak to that 100% of the time, but just understanding what I do of the people we're moving. I'm not working with them on the phone and so forth, but I can see things in our system that's telling us that. So they are going to an office location and want to live within a 30-minute commute of that.
Yeah, we're let's see, we've got some comments around pent up demand here. Vinny Valverde says it is coming. At this time, we are relocating as employees feel comfortable with moving. Interesting. Some employees have decided for relocation after taking the vaccines.
Yep.
Makes sense. Most of the employees are still waiting for additional guidance from the company on reopening of the offices, which is coming soon. Once that guidance comes out, our pending relocations will start. Diane, what are you hearing from your clients on back to work dates?
I'm seeing a little bit of this August timeframe. July, they'll start to move. They don't need to report until August. So I'm kind of thinking August, September is going to be the time frame, because I do think it allows everyone to get vaccinated and get past that July date that President Biden has also put out there. So I don't know if companies are following that because of his language or what, but that's what I'm hearing more and more of, is that August, September.
I heard some old July 1 dates from a few months ago, and I don't know if that guidance has changed at these companies that I heard that from. And then And then I was talking to a very large company recently, and they have a September 1 back to work date. It's interesting. So now my second question along that, and Jack kind of touches on it, we are seeing an early summer rush, so it will most likely be a lengthier rush period. But if back to work is September 1, let's say, for a lot of companies, or for some companies, I should say. But if it's September 1, what does that do to the kind of the arrival pattern of moves, right? Because
it's going to be an interesting year.
Right?
Yeah, we would be having the high season right now, but I think our high season will kind of just be there for the summer, and then it'll get higher in September if this back to work pattern is what it is.
Or is it kind of a thing where the curve just doesn't curve back down, just kind of rides flat a little bit for a couple months, kind of
I think it's going to get higher, but it may be flat, like you're saying.
Just kind of like a ramp up almost into. I mean, a ramp up into what? So what is peak? What is peak then?
I think
peak's always been July. Like peak's always been around me July 4th. Like July 4th holiday is kind of peak. What do you historically see? And then
historically, for 19 or 18 years, we've been in business 18 years on May 19th. May has always been the busiest month, followed by June and July very closely, but it always happens in May. And then we start to see it curtail in August, September. It doesn't die, but it just starts to curtail. And then you get into November, December, and it goes flatline. Then you start to see it tick up again in January. First quarter's good, April's good, May, always through the roof. So this year, we saw all that happen in April.
So let me ask you, when you say through the roof, is that, I want to be careful, is that new orders?
Yes.
Or is that like signing leases? Or is that move-in dates?
It's new orders.
Mm-hmm. So order volume, but those orders aren't going to be performed. Those what are those move-in dates on those orders?
Yeah, those move-in dates would be probably within 30 days of that.
30 days. So June. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Really interesting. And then so I think you're going to see I call it an Indian summer, where it's just like the summer kind of keeps going. I think you're going to see one of those situations.
I think so too.
Which is actually really good for some industries that are constrained by capacity.
Exactly.
Is that favorable for rental housing and other types of housing?
I think it is because, just as we were talking, when you get into that third and fourth quarter, things start to calm down a little bit because people are already making their school decisions. They have to be placed prior to that before school starts. And assuming school goes back in session this year, this next coming school year, which I think indicators are that it should, then you might see that calm happen in terms of people settling into housing at that point. And you may not see, the craze of applications, but I just know that the housing is limited. So it's still going to happen. I just think it maybe will curtail a little bit, but you can't create the housing market that isn't there. You can't make rentals happen if you're not building inventory for people.
And to your point, lumber is the price of lumber and the availability of lumber is through the roof. And we're gonna talk about that with some folks, because that's directly also impacting the household goods industry. And we it's just and also steel. Steel and other metals, are very expensive right now. So I don't see how building's gonna keep up.
Right.
Super interesting. Tom Brune says March was the month when NEO's RMC customer volumes returned to numbers that were either at or in some cases above what they experienced in 2019.
Ours were higher than 2019.
In March?
March and April.
Wow. So it truly is a pent-up demand. It truly is a incremental.
Happening. And May is looking very positive also. So again, will it continue, or is it that pent up? That's what is yet to be seen.
Jack, you're always other side of the coin to me, Jack. All right. Jack's always an argument for like a regression to the mean. Like, it's going to be pretty much. Jack says, wouldn't you agree that it goes down in September because folks don't want to move during the school year? So maybe it will be the case this September as well.
It depends on if they have kids. And I think it also just depends on the move cycle of that business. So if the striker, for example, hasn't been wanting to do moves, hypothetically, and all of a sudden you can, then you start moving people, whether they have kids or not, or what have you. So I really think it's a matter of that back to work policy. And if you need somebody in that place, they're going to move. And I think this year is still just going to be strange because of the vaccine.
Yeah, and I got another theory about this too. I mean, our country has gotten more and more focused on our kids, and you can't mess with the kids, and it's about how many
Right.
AP classes can we get them into. And if I move my son and daughter, they don't have their boyfriend girlfriend anymore, and they're not on their sports team anymore, and like they're gonna kill me in my sleep. And like we've done everything about the kids, right? In our country and our society, and then COVID happened. And the kids' lives were turned upside down, inside out, in ways that we would have never, ever subjected them to.
Exactly.
And I don't feel like that the kids and the schooling and is that much of is as untouchable as it was before. I don't feel like those, school's starting, it's hard and fast. I mean, if you just went through the last year and a half with your kids going to school virtually, what's another couple weeks? I just feel like we're in different territory, and I think the tolerance for change is different than it was a year and a half ago.
That very well could be, and the normal trends of relocation, like you said, due to school or other things that families are dealing with, will dictate whether they even negotiate with their employer to say, you know what, I'm going to wait till next year to move. Employers are probably going to be super flexible about how they address this. I don't know. That's a question for the audience, really. How flexible are employers going to be? What are their mandates for back to work? Are they requiring it? Do they have to be vaccinated? All the things that people are working through.
I'd love to hear that. If anybody'd like to weigh in on flexibility around return to work and requirements, I'd love to hear about that from any of the corporate folks out there. So let's see here. We got some people checking in here. Brian Rivers checking in.
Hi, Brian.
Late, but here. Good to see you, Brian. Francine checking in late from VIP Corp. Where Francine and Brian, you guys hanging out or something? You got another meeting? What's going on?
Late
together. Francine says, I have a long background in property management. They do charge termination fees. Look at this. Michael says, Diane, are you seeing any people coming from outside the USA?
No, not really. We have some, but it's limited. It's this volume that I'm talking about is 90% domestic. So it's just U.S. citizens, U.S. moves. We do some moves in Canada also, but 90% has been domestic.
This is interesting. That's good information. Brian Smith from Change Healthcare says, I think very flexible. We are giving multiple options. Brian, what are the rules of engagement? Are people requiring vaccines, or are you just not touching that? Love to know. Farrell says visas still waiting to be approved in some cases I've seen.
Yep.
For sure. Let's see here. Carrie says we have had the strongest start to this month than we've had any other this year, and April was much busier than last April on new business placed. Jack, in my opinion, your better companies will be flexible as to when they have to move. Yeah, I think flexibility is the name of the game.
I think so too.
We can't be flexible now. I mean, we just came out of a year and change of
Right.
I think we've learned that skill.
And I've read over the months about the remote working, and Jack's been in the game on that, where people go back to the office. Of course, people will not just work remotely and live in their homes and isolated from companies. But at some level, depending on their level in the company and what their role is, there is opportunity for some of them to remain remote and maybe just have to report for meetings here and there. But that's really about their skill level, the education level. Like IT folks may not necessarily have to be in an office where HR people do. Other types of roles need to, other, of course, customer facing roles will need to, the culture of the company and what's developed there. They're still hanging on to needing some of that office time and not just a straight remote working, but flexibility, like you said, I think is key. And that's what we're going to see over the next at least couple of years.
You know, you bring up such a great point. I was researching a talk I did in Sydney yesterday, virtually, of course. And one of the stats I came across that I thought was fascinating was 61% of people said they would consider leaving their job if they weren't given flexible work options.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Now, whether or not, they say that now, I mean, I know people, senior vice president level people that were saying, if I got to go back in the office, I'm quitting.
Right.
They're going back in. They're doing 50-50 right now.
Right.
They're simmering down a little bit. They're chilling. But yeah, I mean, that's a strong sentiment out there. It takes 21 days to make a habit. Well, we've been doing this for 14 months now.
Right.
We're pretty, it's going to be tough. Hybrid seems to be more the talk and allowing the employee to decide what works best for them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's incredible. Talk about a departure from the traditional employee-employer relationship where employers, command and control,
I agree. I just don't think it can be there. And I mean, personally at PorchLight, we've never been like demanding of that and requiring this and that. We require certain metrics. We require KPIs. We require things that make sure the performance is there, along with a fun company culture and teamwork, but there's accountability here. And so with that, can we have a hybrid work model? Absolutely. If there's accountability, we can measure what you're doing. Absolutely. So we've always had a little bit of flexibility. So I will be the first to say we would be open to more flexibility in that regard, just after what we've been through. So it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you're going to recruit the best and brightest talent, that top 5%, they're going to be real picky, I think, about the situation. Because there's also going to be more variance between the situations out there, right? So anyway, Brian also says nothing about vax. Okay, so he hasn't heard any mandates around vaccine. Interesting. Carrie saying perhaps a hybrid, better work-life balance would be a great lesson taught to us by COVID. National have been consultative about office openings and associates comfort in returning. This has included education on the vaccine and surveys anonymously as to whether associates will be getting them. This is allowing them to make the best decisions as to whether and or when offices open. We are seeing our clients take similar approaches. Hybrid is a smart way to go. So interesting. Wow. Diane, there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on in the housing market, and we all need houses, and we're in the relocation business, so that's what we do. People need a place to live, and so it'll be an interesting year, folks. That's all I got to say. And for anyone on this today, please talk to your clients, or actually the customers. I mean, the transferees just need proper expectation setting so that they're all going into this with a realistic approach to having success, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, I love it. That's great advice. Diane, you want to play a little game?
I don't know. Do I?
Oh, you do. I know. I always ask that so nefariously. No, you do. You do. It's a top 5. You got a top 5 today, Diane?
Well, if it's there for me, I do. Thank you.
Nice. Stacey's amazing. Stacey's the MVP of the whole show.
She's been great to work with. Thank you for your patience with me too and answering some emails. So yes, top 5 things renters need to be aware of in the current market. Number 1.
Nice. I like it. I might be back in the market. Number 5.
Renters need to make sure they are prepared. That means expectations, prepared for the market, prepared for what it's going to offer them, prepared to, be reasonable for what the market's going to offer. No low balls.
Reasonable renters, no low balls. Number 4.
If you have pets or credit issues, you need a credit resume. And at PorchLight, we provide that for you. We can't fix your credit, but we're going to help you prepare for how we can present that properly. And the same with pets. So we don't send them home to figure it out themselves. We give them the templates to use and we coach them through it with some examples.
Do you do pet photography of aggressive breeds with props?
We don't do the physical photography, but we do ask them to provide some family-friendly photos.
That would be fun, right? A filter. You do a filter that puts like a tutu on your pit bull. I'm telling you, think about it. Number 3.
Make sure you have good assistance. An app will not be sufficient in this market. So as much as people love their apps and their technology, that's not how this works. From our discussion today, I think you all know that.
Nice.
Number 2.
What are some of the well before we
You
get
want to
to
rush
number 2. Hold on. Who's hosting this
Sorry.
show? Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Okay. No, just kidding. No. But you say apps. I mean, what are some of the apps that people kind of get sucked into that they think, oh, I can get this done, with this app? Because I mean, let's face it, I think we all, I don't want to say we all, but I know for myself, I rely on technology quite a bit. I think pretty much the internet can solve any problem, and I'm not always right. What are some of the apps that are like pitfalls for people?
Well, I can't really tell you like a specific app not to use or something like that. I think what I'm referring to there, what I know I'm referring to there, is that we hear regularly the need for more technology. And there are companies out there providing technology that help people kind of aggregate information about a market so that they can determine on their own what areas they may want to live in. They get a feedback from fellow employees that live in that marketplace. So if those fellow employees are willing to give that information into the app, now a newcomer, a new transferee into that market can see where fellow employees choose to live, not actual addresses, but areas. And so they can maybe start honing in on, oh, well, other employees live in those areas. Maybe I would like that area too. So that type of information is available in an aggregated form in the relocation space. And so a lot of companies look at that and think, okay, this solves a lot of problems, and we can give them apps instead of what I'll refer to as traditional services. Even though there have been improvements and technology added to traditional services, the local expertise, area insights, risk mitigation, the things that go along with what we do as professionals can't be replaced in an app. And so that app is very available, very helpful to people in maybe figuring out where fellow workers live. But do you want to live there? And we don't know until you see the area. What does it cost? And does it fit your lifestyle? So in this environment,
I would also see like a DE&I issue with that too, right? Because there becomes a lot of homogenization of an area, right? Like, I mean, if we're just all living in the same neighborhood or whatever, I love my neighborhood because it's super diverse. I mean, my neighborhood's super diverse. I know that no other person that works for my company lives in this neighborhood, but it's super diverse and I love it, and so I'm not sure that, I remember when I moved into Detroit, they gave me a list of cities I should live in. And I don't necessarily know that they reflected who I was. Honestly, it was more about who they were and not who I was and what we were about. So I hear you on that. What I would say along the app side, though, is, I love looking at like realtor.com all the time. I'm a big fan of looking up houses. How much is this worth? Whatever. Sure. But if I were using that for my search when I was looking for my rental house, I would not have been aggressive enough. I would not have had the speed of information. I don't think I would have done nearly as well, without the assistance of a realtor and things that were more real time. So,
and you would have learned that. You would have gone through the process and said, oh no, I'm not getting these rentals. What do I need to do differently? And so at that point, you probably would have made a change. So apps, and I'm referring to them as just websites, to get that rental information, those are very important. We use them too. We don't have some special magic and hidden listings. We use all of those types of tools, and maybe tools that others don't know about just because we do this all the time. So we're going to know of some other sites, but the key is that feet on the street, that person that's connected in the marketplace who might actually be able to sell you differently to a listing agent than the 10 other applicants that are there. And I can't overpromise, but those are things that do happen in our business.
Yeah, you definitely want to have a realtor, reaching out to another realtor, have a conversation.
Absolutely. That representation is important.
Yeah, I agree. Number 2.
You're rushing me. Be prepared to act quickly. So as we heard, if you want it, then you need to not think about it too much longer than, the next 10 minutes, or think about the best approach to take so that you are certain to be selected, or the top 2 or 3 candidates to be talked to about a listing. Act quickly. Number 1. Be prepared to negotiate. And that means on all levels, just like we were talking about earlier. What happens if you can't get, what happens if there is no rental and the person needs to move? Well, that's part of the negotiation. How much farther out can you go, or what will you settle for, or what will you pay higher to secure something? Be prepared to negotiate. When you have pets, you're going to have to put some money on the table to be a desirable candidate in the pool of 10 or 20 others. And so you just have to be prepared to maneuver in that situation and negotiate. Nice. Great suggestions. This has been wonderful, Diane. You've been fantastic. I really appreciate all these amazing, actionable tips. This housing crisis is wild. I am very interested to figure out, find out how it's all going to end. People are really enjoying these insights you're giving. Ben Heller, always love listening to Diane's perspective. Cheers to you both. Thanks, Ben. I like yours too. Carrie saying, yes, Diane, technology alone can't always replace a personal touch and experience of a local. It's great. Carrie, tech is great and totally requires invaluable in many ways, but I believe and hope our industry will always be driven by people and human interaction. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. This is great. Diane, do you want to leave us with maybe a final thought? I don't know. You don't have to. I just hope if you're, taking this information, that you'll do something good with it and talk to your customers and your clients about what we're doing out in the marketplace, what they're facing, just so we can all be successful together. Because I can't imagine trying to recruit people in this market and putting them out there to find no place to live. That just doesn't feel good. So we all just need to be better prepared and ready for that. So, and thank you for this forum. Thank you for this opportunity. And it's been very fun. Well, thank you, Diane. It's great having you as always. And thanks to everybody that got involved. The chat and the comments and the questions were amazing. People were on fire. The show is always better when you are watching and checking in. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Give Diane a round of applause. Hit that green little applause button there. If you're watching, also, I want to plug this real quick. This is a Move for Hunger tumbler right here. You can buy the moveforhunger.org/tumbler. I think they're like $35. They're insulated. Look at that. Put a little margarita in there. You throw a little water, coffee, super, super great. Get a couple of them. Why not? 100% of the money goes to not Love and Relo, but Move for Hunger. So check that out. You see how I did that, Diane? You see? You did a nice job with that. Magic of television. All right. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much. We will not be on Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next week. Be well, everyone. And be